Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night Reef Talk live stream, where today, by popular demand, I'm joined once more by Ryan from Prestige Reef. Ryan, thanks for joining. How are you?
Hey, yeah, good, thank you. You okay?
I am very well, yeah.
I like how we're pretending we haven't just spoken to each other for half an hour.
No, yeah. Well, I posted on Instagram as well, showing people that we've been talking anyway. So,
Oh, did you?
This is what the pros do, isn't it? It's what they do on the news. So,
Oh, I see.
And we're basically BBC News standard levels of professionalism. So,
one of us is.
Well, we even have matching microphones.
That's true, because you told me that I had to go get a proper microphone if I was going to be welcome back.
Exactly. But yeah, so we'll let's have a see who's in the chat for a second, and then we'll come on to. I'll introduce what we're going to be doing today. So we have Reef Rookie, who is expecting big things. We have Hugo Tate, a new member. Welcome along, Hugo. Planet 3D, Darren, who I met in Reef Keeper a couple of weeks ago. Good evening, Darren. Frag Farm, Doug says not him again. Sean Parrish is in the house. One Armed Reefer, Trev Rhodes, Les the moderator, NB Reefing, James Mark Martin, McStan 101, Ryan's Reef, Andy B944, Howard, Jacob Matlock, McStan, I think I might have introduced already, Michael Klassen, Sean Carvel, Varshal MVH Pets, Pussjack, Producer Reef, Beard Meets Reef, Justin Lee, Doom Rider 3000, NB Reefing, Red Bunny, and Chris Gallier, all here just to see Prestige Reef.
Not really. I liked how NB Reefing said that Ryan has inappropriate images in the background.
He does have very inappropriate.
These are my emotional support naked ladies. So
these are your. Yeah, you said this last time that you were trying to get me demonetized from YouTube, basically.
True. But obviously, if I'm welcome back, then it didn't work.
No, exactly. So you have to step up and try harder. And Hugo, do you know a guy called Hugo Tate? Oh, he says met. I thought he meant two of us. He's met me.
No.
I don't remember. I'll remember your face, Hugo, I'm sure, but I don't remember your name.
I know Rookie Reefer. Rookie Reefer is the person that I mentioned in the video about the ammonia test kit.
Oh, really? Yeah,
yes.
yeah. That was your video today, right?
Yes. Let me go put the light on quickly, because as it gets darker, it'll get darker in the room, so I better do it now. Good
stuff. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, whilst we're waiting for Ryan to get back, I'm going to go on to the YouTube member section because we do have, as is now the tradition, we have questions from members that we're going to start with, and then we'll get into the meat of the live stream. So firstly, James has a couple of questions for you. He says, hello, Ryan, welcome back. If you could ban one thing in the hobby, what would it be? And if you could make one thing mandatory, what would that be?
If I could ban one thing in the hobby, it would be you, because then I've got no competition. Taking the question seriously, if I could ban one thing in the hobby, it would be probably a fish that doesn't belong here.
One that's quite difficult.
Yeah, I know that's the problem. So, which one do you pick? Moorish idols are usually an obvious choice, but it's going with the theme of tonight. Copper bands. I really wonder if they should be in the hobby. Yeah. And I know I have lots of them, and I know it's controversial, but I'm not sure that they are suited to our tanks.
You know, that's a cracking start for the stream. Actually, that's not on my list of controversial opinions, but you're probably right. And so I've had since I've been running the channel, I think I've had 3 copper bands, and I'm very conscious that even if I don't mention it and I don't tell people I've got one, they'll see it in the tank, and people comment, or people will be like, "Oh, Alex has got one, so I'll get one." And I had 2 that died. Yeah. And I went ahead and got a 3rd one. I was like, should I be doing this? But I decided I really wanted to. But I guarantee that will be encouraging other people who'll be like, oh, that's fine. Just get another one. Alex does it. Just get 5, one will live.
That's the problem with what we do. People don't see, to some extent, that what went on before. They will only see a glimpse of our tanks in the videos in that moment. But unless it's made very obvious, and you said right then, I've had 3 copper bands. It's people just think, oh, that's okay, I'll get one.
and even then, so I've made a video about why you shouldn't buy a copper band, and I guarantee people are watching and go, oh, "God, they're awesome! I want one." Like your senior thing. So.
It's the same as I think we discussed this before. Whenever I tell people don't buy Xenia, the first thing they want to do is buy Xenia.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there was a second part of that question.
Yeah. One thing
would
you'd
I
make mandatory. People have to do.
If it's unrealistic, I would make people. This is an unrealistic thing. I'd make people test their water weekly.
Well, there's one part that I didn't read out of Ryan's question, and that was to make things more interesting. You're not allowed to say testing.
Oh, okay. I might have to come back to this one. I'm not sure what would I make. I think that a lot more care needs to be taken with regards to fish nutrition. I think people should learn. I think other than obviously water parameters and something going significantly wrong, and then obviously disease, nutrition is the next cause of death. So are you feeding things what they need to be fed, basically?
But it's not just about hobbyist learning, because so I a couple of times I've gone in looking for pellet food into shops, and I've been looking. I pick up and I look for the ash content, which is part of what you're supposed to look for. And there are a couple of times I haven't found it, and I've asked shop owners, "Do you know what the ash content of this is?"
Yeah,
and they'll always say, "You're the first person who's ever asked that." And it's not that I'm a genius, by the way. It's just I've seen like a BRS video or whatever, but people don't know about it. So really, that someone needs to educate, whether it's a fish food manufacturer or a retailer or someone needs to do that to teach us what we should be looking for.
It's almost like some YouTuber needs to put out a video about, how to feed your fish properly.
Yeah. Well,
which one of us definitely has done.
Have you done that?
Yes.
Oh, well, there we go. Oh, yeah, you're there. So
I didn't mention the ash content. I mentioned the protein content, which I assume, obviously, the higher the protein, the less ash that is in it.
Yeah.
I've always picked my foods based on protein. The higher the protein, the better.
This is 55%. Is that good?
Protein or ash?
Protein.
I don't think that's that high compared to. Let me have a quick look.
12% oil.
I might have to have a look. I have to do it another time, but it's.
But there you go. So basically, the answer is watch your video, and then you'll know. Yeah.
That'll be my answer a lot. Oh, so.
Yeah. Sorry, my cat just bit me. Okay, so there we go. So that was his first question. His second question was, have you or will you ever keep non-photosynthetic corals? Is there a market for them?
I currently have sun corals in the coral farm.
Yeah.
I am trying to keep the coral farm as easy as possible. I do have some people who have bought the sun corals, but they're not really for me, if I'm honest. No. So I probably wouldn't. I like things easy.
But so the thing is that none of our tanks are set up for NPS corals at all. No one does it. And I've seen one ever that was set up. It had extremely dim lighting, like 1% of the lights were on. Fed really heavily because guess what? They need food. And that means a ton of filtration, probably a ton of algae. So probably I think that they look cool, but they're very niche. And for anyone other than someone experienced who's looking up to set up the right kind of tank, they're probably not a great idea.
The reason the lighting was probably 1% is because they don't come out usually when it's light. So I never ever see mine. And the reason they're not on the website is because I can't be bothered to go in there at midnight and take a picture of them when they're open. If you see what I mean. That's the only reason they're not on the website.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, so also because if you're keeping that kind of tank, there are some deep water fish that like low light.
Yeah.
Like some fish have massive eyes, don't they? Because they're in deep waters. And even some antheas are deep. Anyway, so that's the answer. And the other question for him, the follow-up was, have you persuaded Alex to go to Reefapalooza yet?
Well, not yet. I did want Reef Dork and Prestige on tour, but it was when I suggested it was meant to be Reef Dork, Prestige, and Reef Dork's partner, and it just didn't have the same ring to it.
Exactly.
So well, that sounds bad in itself.
It does a bit. Keys in a bowl, but we'll move swiftly on.
Anyway,
so there's one more question then, and this is from Hugo, the new member, who said, should corals sellers be more upfront about the pests they have or have had to allow targeted dipping by customers?
I believe people should be. Yeah. The problem is if all of a sudden everyone goes, or a seller went, this is what I have, people would then stop buying from them. And if they might have one Aptasia in a tank full of 10,000 corals, so it's unrealistic, if you see what I mean.
I don't think they should be upfront, because if you were to say, if every coral farm or every coral seller said, oh, by the way, I've had Aptasia, or there's a vermitid snail or an Asterina starfish,
yeah,
it would put people off, and half the people who are buying don't know what it is. I think the better way to do it is, like you do, dip everything, be as careful as you can, know that some stuff is still going to get through no matter how much care you take, and but know that you're a responsible seller, will do the right thing, but you're not going to go. But don't if you tell people I've had X, Y, and Z pests, it's going to put them off for no good reason.
Are you saying this because I asked you if you had any pests and then you sent me a load of Asterina starfish?
Asterina starfish, a free cleanup crew that I'll remind you I did charge you for. So
but... it's an interesting question, that one. What I think that Hugo needs to know is that every fish shop will have some sort of pest. Every coral seller will likely have some sort of pests. Even the big ones in America, they have pest issues. It is down to the end user to be responsible for their tank. What I can say is that if the seller wants repeat custom, then they will do their best to ensure that no pests are transferred to the client. Because as soon as the client gets something, they'll then go, I'm not going back there, and then they lose business. So it is in the interest of the whoever's growing the coral or whoever's selling the coral, whether it's a shop or what I do.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so that's that anyway. So what we're going to do now is move on to the main subject tonight, which is our most controversial opinions on reefing. Now, I've got to start by putting some caveats down here, because this is supposed to be partly a light-hearted video. So if you're watching this back and you're taking it deadly serious and you're looking for deep advice, that's not what this is. So as much as anything, if you watch any of this and it makes you cross, we're just messing around. It's not serious. This is just us talking. The other thing is, this is not necessarily this isn't intended as advice. This is some of these things are things that we do. They're not best practice, and we would never advise people to do it. It's just what we do, and we know, because we've been in the hobby for quite a while, we know what we can get away with more than new people in the hobby, for example.
You look nervous.
Well, yeah, I look nervous because I know. So we talked before the stream, and we don't know what each other are going to say. I think
that's the problem. We don't know what. So I messaged Alex the other day, just one of my ideas, and Alex went, "Oh, a bit too controversial," basically. And I was like, I didn't realize that he meant baby controversial. I thought he meant actual controversial.
You have gone balls deep, as it were.
Yes, so to speak. Yes, I'm going to let you go first. Because I want to see what level you're at before I start bringing out maybe some of the big guns.
Well, in that case, I'm going to start very gentle. Very, very gentle indeed. I just dip my toe in the water and just test the temperature. And the first one is that you shouldn't change your heater every year. Now, I actually don't think that's a controversial opinion, but...
Too soft.
I know it's soft, but bulk reef supply... We're going to go to yours now. It's going to go like off the chart. But BRS in particular always say you should change your heater every year, because that's the most common point of fail, and that's the most likely thing to break your tank, to crash your tank. I couldn't disagree with that more. I think that's such a waste of money and resources and everything. It's just because heaters don't break all the time. If you've got some kind of backup like a heating controller, fine. That will turn your heater off. If that fails, then you're stuffed as well. But I think it's crazy to change a heater every year.
I disagree to some extent. This is going to be interesting, actually, I've just realized. And the reason I disagree is depending on what heater. So you're correct. If you're using a controller,
Yes.
with say titanium heaters, they are less likely to fail than one of the glass ones, where water can get in them and things like that. What I will say, on one of the coral trays, 2 of my titanium heaters failed, and I didn't know. I didn't know at all, because obviously the air conditioning keeps the room warm enough. And then on one day when it was cold, I was like, why is that? This was months ago. Why is the temperature dropping? And so they do fail. And obviously those would have been, they last a year and a half. I'm not suggesting that everyone replaces that. It depends. If you have one of those glass ones, those are notorious for failing. So
there we go.
Round one.
I still wouldn't. But anyway, like I said, gentle start, nice and steady. And I've had glass. The only time I've ever had a heater fail is when it was on a freshwater tank, which is years ago.
Yeah.
And I drained the tank, exposed the heater to air, so it then got massively hot. I then filled the tank up again. It smashed. So I think we can probably agree that might have been my fault.
Definitely. On the day that I got my very, very first fish tank, I bought it secondhand, and I had no idea you couldn't turn heaters on outside of water. I was holding it to see if it was warming up, and it exploded in my hand. So maybe that's why I've got a negative feeling towards the glass heaters.
Once bitten, twice shy, sort of thing. And Paul Fish said he's had an Eheim glass heater for 7 years. And yes, but that Eheim, they're German. Nothing ever made in Germany has ever broken in the history of the planet. So
of Germany,
exactly. So you can keep on going. But we'll move on, because that's a nice gentle one to start with. So Ryan, ramp it up a bit, will you?
I'm going to pick one which isn't necessarily my most controversial one, but I know that certain police might come after me. I believe that there are occasions where it's okay to keep fish in smaller tanks than they would necessarily be suitable for their adult size. For example, you have a coral tray, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's only small, isn't it?
Yeah, 150, probably 120 litres. Yeah.
And I don't believe that you have a tang in there. Is that correct?
That is not correct. I have
you do have a tang in there.
I have a Tommy tang and a fox face.
But so you're obviously about to agree with my opinion.
I completely, yeah.
I think that there are 2 caveats to this one. It's okay to have tangs, for example, in tanks which are too small. In some circumstances, the 2 caveats are, firstly, that the person genuinely is willing to move that fish on if it gets too big.
Which is what
and the other one is that if you know for a fact that you are going to have a bigger tank. Because there are people that go, oh yeah, I'll just get a bigger tank, and then they don't get bigger tanks. And I've seen a tank once which was 4 foot with massive tangs. These tangs were like a foot long. There was one of those dinner plate sized sail fins in this 4 foot tank. So I don't think that that's acceptable, because that person had no plan to upgrade, if you see what I mean. That was just, they just accepted that their fish were in a small tank and they didn't care. But I do think that the tang police that you see on Facebook, where people go mental over having a tang in a 100-litre tank, it might be only be in that tank for 6 months. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So there are fish in the coral farm which are too big, or will be definitely get too big. One of the
clown tang.
So which one?
Your clown tang.
I have a Fowleri tang which will definitely get too big.
Yeah.
They're one of the unusual tangs that people don't get because they get massive. That will have to be moved on. I know someone who has a tank which is insanely big. You can get in it. So if it's going anywhere, it will go there. And I would give that to him for free, because in that, if it's too big, it's not a matter of making some money back. I'd rather it went to a good home.
Completely, yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas some people get attached to their fish and would never want to sell them. Then your only choice is to upgrade. And eventually, if you're getting things that are truly big, even regal tanks get massive.
Regal tangs are the best example of this because a regal tang is a Paracantharus hepatus, right? And anything with a cantharus in the name, in the Latin name, they need a lot of swimming space. And so there will be plenty of people who will say you must not keep a hippo tang in anything, a dory in anything less than a 6-foot tank. And that's probably not bad advice. And I'm sure I've said that in the past as well. But I've seen them. I had a neighbour who had a Red Sea Reef for 250, so 3-foot tank, and he had a dory for 2-3 years. Yeah, and he upgraded, and so he got more space. And when he got it, this was when I was relatively new to the hobby. I was like, mate, can't do that. Needs like a 10-foot tank. That can't do it, and it was absolutely fine for probably 10 years. You've got to be careful with it, and they can. The reason so they can get very aggressive, and you need to be prepared. So if you've got a tank that in a small tank, so in my tank, my tummy tank is absolutely fine. He's tiny. He'll be fine for a couple of years. But if he starts to get aggressive, I've got a fish trap. I know I can pull him out.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. As long as there's forward planning, and you're willing to put the effort in, because getting a fish out can be a pain.
Yeah,
and a lot of people just don't think about it.
Tangs are one of the easier fish to catch, I think, generally, because as soon as I put a fish trap in with put a bit of algae in, or a frag plug with a bit of algae in, my fox face and my tang are in there straight away. Yeah, so it's a piece of cake. But that's not always the case. And I've seen people struggle for weeks with tangs avoiding fish traps because they're clever.
The worst fish I ever had to catch was a coral beauty. That was actually, there was a coral. I had 2 coral beauties and 2 flame angels and a load of other dwarf angels in a reef tank. Yeah. And one of the flame angels started eating coral, and then it was a free for all, and they all wanted to eat it where they hadn't touched it for ages. And to catch the flame angel, I caught one of the small I caught the male flame angel and put it inside a box in the fish trap. And as soon as I did that, the female went in to go see it. Because it ignored all food, but it would not stay away from its little buddy.
Food I can do without. I need sex, basically.
Basically, yes, because they used to spawn every night.
Oh, really?
Every single night they used to spawn. Yeah, there is a really, really bad video. One of the very first videos I put up on the channel was a really bad video of that. But
alrighty. Well, there we go. And so actually, I think generally, let's have a look. So Kraken Cars is saying he has a regal tank that's still small. Had it for 7 years. It would fit in a Reef for 250.
Did it start as one of those little tiny 2p sized ones?
Are they captive bred?
I don't think there's any. I think there's a possibility that someone might have done it, but I don't think there's any captive bred ones that come to market. No.
Yeah. Okay. Fair
someone enough. Might correct me, but I'm pretty sure there isn't.
Because you do get, they're tiny, aren't they? And this is the thing. So everyone wants, when they're new to the hobby, especially if someone's got kids, you want a Nemo and a Dory. Nemo, fine. Dory.
I've never ever wanted a regal tank. I have one in the coral farm at the moment, but I've never wanted one. I've never bought one. That one was obviously given to me from that the tank breakdown where it burst. Yeah. So, and I don't actually want it, and I don't like it because I think it's a bit of a bully around food, and it is aggressive towards my copper band. And that having a copper band that eats is like gold dust. So if a regal tang is bullying it, regal tang's got to go.
Okie dokie. Well, there we go. So tangs. So I agree with you. I think that opinion is less controversial now than it was 5 years ago. I think more people accept that, and that people are less tang policey.
As part of that, I also think people should be aware now, because it's outdated information, that you can keep more than one tang in a tank. Yeah, you can definitely keep more than one tang in a tank.
I know a YouTuber who's made a video on that subject, and this seems to be the theme.
He's a terrible YouTuber,
though. So because I've never kept more than one tang in a tank.
Haven't you?
Because tangs are stupid, and I don't like them. that was one of the things on this list that I've crossed off because I didn't think it was good enough. But you've kept them several times.
All the time. Every single tank in there has multiple tangs in it, even just 2, even just a pair. So what the minimum amounts in there is just 2, which is a gem tang and a yellow tang. So they're 2 very closely related fish, and they're fine.
So that's funny. I would have thought that if I was going to do it without researching it, without watching your video, I wouldn't go for two zebrasomas. I would go for fish the ones that look like they feed differently. So like a tomini or a coal tang
Yeah.
does little pecking all day long, whereas the zebrasomas have got go for a bit more substantial stuff. So I would mix those kind of tangs. But you reckon, well, you find that you can just do chucking whatever.
There is some aggression at first. It's usually the more you have, the less aggression there is. I had 7 zebrasomas in my 1,000 liter tank. My dream is to have one of every type. The
Oh, really?
only one I've never owned is a black tang, and I cannot find one anywhere. There was on Abyss's website. It says they've had one, but I don't know when that was. It says it's out of stock, and I know that they actually have one in their display tank as well. But I don't think anyone sells fish from their display tank, especially if it's a black tang, because they're so hard to get hold of.
Yeah. So I was in Aquatic Emporium. Do you know that in Shepperton?
I've never been there, no, myself.
East Surrey, just west of London. I was in there the other weekend, and they had a what's the Hawaiian wrasse? Potter's wrasse. They had a Potter's wrasse.
Oh yeah.
In their display tank, and I was like, "Is that for sale?"
Yeah. I bet they said no.
They said, "Mate, that's a pet. Get off."
Yeah.
So,
But the tang that was a abyss was like a big. It was a full adult. I would say it was a big black tang.
all righty. Well, we're going to move on then to the next one, and I'm going to step it up a little bit as well from heaters, which is too tame.
Oh yeah, I'm ready for this one.
And this was of all of my videos. So you get stats on your YouTube, on the YouTube Studio, right? And it tells you what percentage of likes you get. Most of my videos are like 99.5% likes versus 0.05% dislike. And that's not because my videos are brilliant. It's just because people like to thumbs up stuff.
It's because I'm out there putting the dislike button.
Or the one who goes thumbs down. But the one video I had, the only video that I got absolutely panned on, and at first it was at about 50% dislike rate. Now
Really?
it's up to like 70% likes. People have
I know what this is. I can guess. Can I guess?
What do you think?
Is it the quarantine one?
It is the quarantine.
Yeah.
But the problem is, so I made 2 mistakes with that video. One, the title was a bit clickbaity, and people clicked on the title, and then I felt like they were replying to the title rather than what I'd said in the video, which people do.
Yeah.
And secondly, I didn't explain myself very well. I was just like, "Oh yeah, la da da, yeah, there we go." I made the right points, but I didn't explain myself. So anyway, the opinion is then that for the majority of people, especially new hobbyists, quarantine, you will kill more fish in quarantine than you would if you just put them in your tank. I think it is better. And this is a key example of the caveat I said at the start. This is not advice. This is you and me chatting. You know, forget YouTube and the 5,000 people who are going to watch this.
Yeah.
I don't think newbies should quarantine fish, because getting quarantine right takes a bit of experience, and getting it wrong is really easy. You can really stuff it up.
Silence. I'm staying away from this one.
Right, well, I'll explain myself then, because it's, and I don't just mean what you should do is just wang any old fish in your tank and to hell with it, and that's fine. You shouldn't, but I think that there are better steps to do instead. So quarantine, I find when I started the hobby, I was this really diligent. Yeah, okay, everyone says you should do it, you should quarantine, so therefore it's best practice. I'm going to do it.
Oh, so you used to do it?
Yeah, I tried for the first probably year to 18 months. I tried.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there'll be somewhere on Ultimate Reef, there'll probably be photos of my quarantine setup. I tried 2 or 3 tanks.
Yeah.
The biggest one I had was about 120 liters, so a reasonable size.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was, but I lost so many fish to quarantine, and I had it was cycled. I had media in there, or I tried not to have rock in there because it absorbs medication, but also I treated with medication.
That was what I was going to ask. Were you actively treating?
Yeah. So, and that's even worse for me. Like, just observing fish in quarantine isn't horrendous. Treating fish, especially if you're a newbie and you don't really know what you're doing, you're asking for trouble. And I followed the guidance exactly. I knew exactly how much water was in my tank, measured out the right doses, and it wasn't just when I was treating. I had loads of fish that died.
I was unlike you. I, at one point, did quarantine the fish. You did it better than me because you sort of half knew what you were doing. I did not know what I was doing. I don't think I lost. The fish that I did lose, I had chromis, and I didn't know at the time that chromis in a small tank will absolutely kill each other. And every day I couldn't work out why one was. It was like one was dying, and the next one was dying, and the next one was dying, and I couldn't work out why. And then I realized it wasn't the disease; they were killing each other because they were in a confined space.
Yeah.
So someone put a minute ago, I think it was Les in the comments, said that there is something to be said about a trustworthy, reliable fish shop. So yes, there you go. So almost all of my fish come from the same place. There, unless
can you name that? That sounds like a good thing. Can you say it, or do you not want to?
Oh, don't want to say who
do you
it
want
is?
to say what the fish shop is?
Oh, I get a lot of the fish from Maidenhead and Crawley. Maidenhead and Crawley is not a traditional Maidenhead. It's actually a very, very good one. They get all of their fish from TMC, and TMC have copper in their water. So if you think about it, they're already being actively treated at TMC to some extent, I believe. I can't say for sure. I'm sure someone will correct me. And then obviously when it goes to a fish shop, and I don't believe they import any of their own fish. I think they all come from the same place. And you can sometimes tell a fish shop which has a lot of imported fish because there is a lot more ropey fish in there, if you see what I mean. Right. I don't know if it's just when I go there it's exceptional, but it is very good when I go there. And also the other shop that I went to recently, which are in the comments, I went to Kraken Coral up near Manchester. Is it Kraken Coral? Kraken.
Yeah, Kraken Coral.
Yeah. That was an exceptional shop. That really was an exceptional shop when I went there. You can tell the difference between a shop which takes care of what they're doing and a shop that doesn't. And that I actually put a message out. I don't know if Kraken saw it on it was only a quick one on my Facebook and Instagram that day because I was actually so impressed. And I don't do that very often. And I've been to a lot of fish shops.
Yeah.
So
there we go. So I'll finish that off then, because it's not just as simple as I'll just wang your fish in and it'll be fine. Don't worry about it, because the fish disease is a thing, right? It's legit. Fish come from the ocean. It doesn't matter so much there because the parasites will just go out into the middle of the ocean and they won't bother them. We've got them in a trapped space, so the parasites will just multiply and they'll go crazy. So it's a real danger. And if I'd ever had velvet, for example, I'd probably feel, because all your fish die like that with velvet, so I might feel differently.
Yeah.
And I've had white spot, and it didn't wipe out my tank, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say. And I didn't treat it. But anyway, so
the powder blue that I have gets into. It hasn't got white spot at the moment. It hasn't had it for months actually, but intermittently it'll get white spot and then it will get better. There is definitely something to be said that the fish's own immune system can cure. For sure. Them. And I do think that sometimes the stress of taking them out and putting them into a separate tank and treating them both on those fish and the existing fish in the tank in the system, because remember you have to then put that fish back into the system, which is then more stressful for them, if you see what I mean. There is something to be said about
sorry.
I was about to say what you're about to say. There's an argument to be said that leaving them, if it's just a couple of white spots, don't absolutely go crazy and panic and strip your whole tank down. We are going to get in trouble, aren't we?
We are, but let me tell you what I do then. And this is, I can't remember how much of this I said in the video. I think this is basically the points I was getting. First off, selection, choosing the right specimen. So like you say, point number one, find a good shop that you can trust, a proper a shop who knows marines and knows what they're doing with them. If you can ask if they quarantine, probably won't quarantine, but some of them will treat, like with copper or various other things. Some of them treat for flukes. If you can ask that, great. Ask what stage of the treatment process they're at, because of course you'll go in halfway through a cycle or whatever. So finding a good place is important. Secondly, and you're smirking because I'm crashing my entire channel and everyone's unsubscribing as I'm talking. But secondly, choosing the right fish. It's so important, and you shouldn't just be like, oh, cool, they've got an algae blenny I was after, let's get him. you should look at them really closely for a good couple of minutes, to the point that people will be walking past going, what's that
Why is
guy
he
doing?
looking?
Exactly. Look at them really closely, because you will see when you first look at them, you might just think looks quite plump, looks healthy. But when you look at a fish closer and closer, you start to see, it's obvious, really. You start to see things that you wouldn't have done straight away. And there have been plenty of times when I've gone into a shop and I thought that fish looks awesome. Then I just watch them for even 30 seconds a minute, and you start to think, oh, hang on, is that a white spot? And then
Yes.
it might just be lymphocystis or whatever. But you see things that you don't. So never do it in a rush. So first off, find a good shop that you can trust. Second off, choose very carefully and spend time choosing it. I've even before, with when I bought a copper band, I went in to see it. I said, look, I'm going to come back next week and see how it is. And I did that a couple of weeks in a row. And copper bands get sold quickly. As soon as they come in, they go. Yeah. And I was like, if it goes, it goes. That's fine. I'm not going to risk this. I'm not just going to rush it to buy one. So spend as much time as you can. If you can do several visits, great. But spend as much time as you can selecting them to make sure it doesn't have a pinched belly in particular, and it doesn't have any signs of being bullied, ripped fins or anything like that, or certainly spots.
It's usually on the fins that you can see the spots the clearest.
Yeah.
So on the two side fins, you can definitely when they're open, if you see what I mean, and you can see through them. That is the best place to look for white spots, because that's usually where you can see them the clearest.
Okay, well there you go. So step 3, feed him properly, like you said earlier. Yeah. So that doesn't just mean feed them once a day. It means find out what their diet is. So Brian from BRS says this all the time. When if you see tangs in the wild, they're not out hunting shrimp.
No,
they're pecking for algae on the rocks,
and they're so fat.
Yeah, they are.
They're so fat. It's very rare when I see lots of people's tanks. It's very rare to see them looking like they look in the wild. If you come and see my powder blue, or you have seen my powder blue, that is one chunky fish. Because the fish in the coral farm get fed usually at least 3 times a day, if not more. So
feeding it the right thing and feeding it enough is important. And I'm a hypocrite here because my fox face, people keep commenting on my videos because my fox face is looking really thin at the moment. It's been that way for months. I'm working on it. I'm trying.
I did notice, but I didn't want to say anything.
I know, but everybody notices, and people mean well. They say, mate, your fox is thin. You might want to do something about it. Yeah. And I think I might be turning a corner with him now. But anyway, so feeding properly is massively important. And I don't really buy many fish anymore. I can't remember the last time I did buy fish, maybe 6 months ago, or maybe I bought one in the last 6 months or a year. If I were to buy fish now, I'd be a bit more nervous. For the first 3 years, maybe, of my tank, I ran UV, which I don't anymore. And I got to the point where I had a 55 watt UV, so a big old UV on a 400 litre tank. And that, if you set the flow right, it won't cure your fish. It's not the same as quarantine, but that will help. If there's an outbreak, it will kill off or sterilize, so they can't breed, some of the parasites. So that as well, that's not like, I get a UV and it's fine, you don't need to quarantine. But that was the final stage, which I don't do anymore because I don't really buy fish. But that was the final stage in making sure fish are... no, it's not. Sorry, there's one more. Bullies. But if a fish is being bullied, you won't eat. That's true. So I don't have aggressive fish in my tank. My coal tang, whitetail coal tang, they're known to get quite feisty. Mine is fine at the moment. I had a purple tang in, I don't know, 6 months ago, a year ago, and as soon as I put my copper band in, he bullied him. So the purple tang came out. I sold him to a fellow reefer. So fish aggression and choosing the right fish, and that leads into as well making sure your tank is set up properly. So you've got loads of swim throughs and underhangs and caves, place where fish can hide and get out of the way, so they're not constantly getting battered. And setting up your tank properly. So I think that's the full list of the things I do instead of quarantine.
And the one thing that we do need to say, just to redeem ourselves, is that BRS have done a very impressive series at the moment. I don't know if you've seen it,
Yeah,
on how to quarantine fish properly, proactively. So I now know that what I was doing was not even remotely quarantining them. I was just kind of looking at them. I did treat them with copper if they needed it, but to do it properly, watch their latest videos. They are very good.
there's
And I
that
think
guy.
have you seen them?
Yeah.
So is that if I'm assuming you weren't quarantining to that extent?
I'll tell you what I was doing. So I put them in a tank on their own, and I would let them rest for a week, and then was it a week? I think it was so long ago. It was about 5 years ago last time I did it. I think it was a week. I think I'd leave them for a week, and then I'd start a round of chloroquine phosphate. And there's a guide on Ultimate Reef for chloroquine CP, and I followed that to the word. But I always found, or not, I didn't always find, I often found that fish would die in quarantine despite that. And it was because, it's not because quarantine's rubbish and it kills fish. It's because I was doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But I sought guidance. I tried different methods. I tried different ways of doing it. I stuck with it. I made sure I did it again and again. So I knew what I was doing, built up a big experience, and I still didn't have success with it. And it's not that everybody will be the same, but that is my view. But what I would say, really important to say, listen to this opinion and then go and look at the other opinion where people say you absolutely must quarantine. Hear what they've got to say, make your own mind up. Don't say, oh, do you know what Reef Talk says? It's fine, so it's fine. And maybe I only need to choose one or two of the things he says, and don't worry about getting it from the right shop or whatever. Do everything properly and research into it. Ask other people's opinion.
Okay, I'm just nervously looking at the comments just to see
is everyone saying
how we're doing.
Thumbs down and so on.
It is interesting because when you came up with this idea, I was like, yeah, all right, I'll give it a go. And then now it's like, I'm not sure how I feel about this.
I know, yeah. But anyway, so we'll move on from that. Yeah, and we'll go on to you've got a big one, haven't you?
Do we do my big one or do we not? I'm not going to do my big one.
All right.
I'll do one of the second more it's not serious ones. And it's basically the hobby is not that hard anymore.
Actually, can I stop you? There's just one last point I've just seen.
Yeah.
I don't know where this came from, but someone's talking about cleaner shrimp. A great but pointless. So I don't know if someone else has said cleaner shrimp are good for quarantine. This is absolutely right. They are pointless. They might make 0.1% of a difference to fish disease, but it might not even be as much as that. I completely agree. They're cool, and in theory, I'm sure they do more good than harm, but they're not going to stop your fish getting diseases or kill parasites properly.
That's exactly the same as cleaner wrasse as well.
Yeah.
Cleaner wrasse are actually one of those fish which definitely should be left in the ocean, because they've done studies and they've seen that fish are going back to reefs to be cleaned where they used to be cleaned, and the cleaner wrasse aren't there anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And because they have no use in our tanks really, and they don't actually have a very high survival rate either. They're not a fish which should be kept in captivity. So if you see a cleaner wrasse, what I was saying to Alex earlier, this was before the stream, we all have a vote. We basically vote with our money. So if no one bought a Moorish idol again, that's us all casting a vote saying we don't want Moorish idols in the hobby. And eventually they will stop being collected.
Yep.
So don't think that you don't make a difference. Everyone who doesn't buy a cleaner wrasse, or everyone who doesn't buy any fish which shouldn't be here, is actually helping the industry, if you see what I mean, because it's almost like self-regulation. The problem is when people don't have the correct advice and they think that a cleaner wrasse will clean up their fish, if you see what I mean. So they buy it because they think it's doing a job.
Yeah.
It then makes the industry worse, if you see what I mean.
Also on that, so there are some fish like copper-banded butterflies. If we stop buying them, shops will stop selling them because they're here to make money.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, good luck persuading someone not to buy a copper band because they just look so cool. So there's a problem with that.
I know. I agree with you for that.
But anyway.
I'm the worst for it because I have lots of them.
Yeah, exactly. But you have a good record with them. But let's move on Because you were
Okay.
talking about something else. I interrupted you.
Yes.
Sorry.
So my next one is that the hobby is not that hard anymore. And the reason I say this is because I have been in this hobby for 15 years. And there will be people who have been in this hobby a lot longer than me. But I have a much wider perspective of what the hobby used to be like.
Mhm.
And the people who've been in it for 25 years will have a completely more serious version, a more difficult version, when acroporas were seen as impossible to keep. Whereas now they're not impossible to keep. So already you can see it's not as hard as it used to be. There is so much more information out there. Even I actually learned from books. There were no YouTube channels. I think Mr. Saltwater Tank might have been the only YouTube channel there was when I first started. And New York Stilo. Yeah. So back then there really wasn't a huge amount of information. I had to learn everything from books.
Did you read The Conscientious Marine Aquarist?
I did. I really, really enjoyed that book.
Late
And
Bob
that book is actually where I got one of my most serious, as I said, the most controversial thing that I'm about to say actually came partly from that book.
Oh, really?
Yes, because as I said, you already know what it is. But if you read that book, and that was by it's Bob Fenner, I think, isn't it?
Correct.
Someone
he passed
who was
away a couple of year ago. Yeah.
Someone who's incredibly respected in the industry. If he can say that and people aren't outraged, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
This book is, I am not very good at reading. I basically can not read very well at all. And I read every page of this book probably twice. It is written in a really, really easy format. And it probably will need to be revised now because obviously it was written a little while ago. And information will have changed since then. But I found one of my original books the other day, and the information in that book, it was so outdated. It was incredibly outdated about like how the first protein skimmers and things like that, and what fish could be kept together. So obviously no tangs could ever be kept together. It was impossible according to this book, and which technically is somewhat correct if you see what I mean, but.
Yeah, it's if you're going to give like a one-line piece of advice, that's what you'd say. But actually, the proper answer takes a bit more time. And this doesn't seem right. It says 2008 this came out. I think it was much older than that. But anyway, that must be an updated version. But anyway, so it talked a lot about Berlin method, basically. So an absolute ton of live rock and a skimmer, and the methods don't necessarily, they'll still work today. Yeah. But they don't necessarily suit people. But the underlying issues haven't changed because it's how to keep fishing corals. So that's a good read. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to it isn't that hard anymore. There are certain basics now, and you can make it as hard as you want as well. So if you want an all Xenia tank, then it's not hard at all. It will do that for you. You put a frag in there, you can basically just ignore it, and you'll have an all Xenia tank.
Yeah.
If you want all Acropora tank, then it's really hard. I believe that it is a myth of the hobby that it's hard or extremely difficult, which is what it is still portrayed as, and it just isn't. And I think that part of that myth comes from us. Part of that myth comes from hobbyists telling their friends, telling their partners or their mums and dads and everyone, going, look what I do. I am a master of the sea. and the reality is the coral farm runs itself. I have to do hardly anything anymore with in terms of running the coral farm. There is a basic schedule which I follow, and as long as I follow that schedule, then everything goes well.
The difference with that is you know what you're doing.
Yes.
And it is I can't remember. You've definitely done a video on this. I can't remember if I have as well. I was going to do two. One that says the hobby is really hard, and one that says it's easy, so I can present both arguments.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I did one. I can't remember which one I did.
You did. I think you did easy.
Did I? Right. Okay.
I think I definitely did easy. That was my most popular video.
That's what I did because I was like, right, that worked. Let's see if I can do it as well, and it didn't. But anyway, so it is easy if you know what you're doing. So my tank runs itself as well for the most part. I don't test very often, which I should, and I don't spend that much time on it. But there are still things I have to troubleshoot, all that sort of stuff. it's easy if you've done. Actually, do you know what? So this is the one video I am going to make at some point is about the difference between fresh and saltwater tanks, and how easy is it? Because it is easy, but the difference is it's easy for someone who is a little bit conscientious. So I've got I was speaking to someone at work the other day who's got a freshwater tank, and he said he left it. He went away for a fortnight or something, had the lid off. When he came back, half the water had evaporated, and there was a couple of fish lying on the side, and he just poured a load of tap water in, and everything was fine. Now you can get away with that.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of times that wouldn't be great, but you can get away with that with a freshwater tank. If you made the same mistake in saltwater, bang, you're done. It's wiped out.
Yeah.
So it's easy if you've done a bit of research, and you don't have. I spent 2 years before I got into the hobby reading books like Robert Fenner on forums, reading articles, and it wasn't much YouTube around then. But that's what I was doing for 2 years, talking to people in shops. What a waste of time! When I got into the hobby, I was like, I don't know anything. But you do need to do some research. And if you do a little bit of research, and if you care about the hobby and you want to spend time with it, it is easy. If you're just like, oh, you know what, I've got a goldfish, I quite fancy a couple of clownfish and some corals, it's not quite so easy.
Do you think that it would be possible to essentially create a recipe for success for someone who hasn't had a reef tank before? So, for example, you could say you want to get this 3-foot tank, and you want this or 4-foot or whatever size tank you and you say you are only allowed these select fish. So you're only allowed a clownfish. So do you see what I mean? So if they want to keep an Achilles tank, it's an entirely different scenario. But if you just want to have a reef in your house and you're not interested in keeping the most amazing, brightly colored acropora or things like that, then it's nowhere near as hard as people think it is. I will fight my corner on this one.
You're absolutely right, and so the point of the recipe, it is possible, but you're damn right there are limitations because it can't. When I found it on my on Google Photos. You know, it tells you these photos from 10 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
Me, I had a load of screenshots of the fish I wanted before I got into the hobby, and it was like
good
sharp nose puffer. Some that are sensible, and I've got now like a little scarlet hawkfish, but loads that were just like, oh, they're cool. Live Aquaria says it's reef safe with caution, so that's probably worth a risk. But what you would have to say with the recipe is forget acropora, probably forget SPS, to be honest.
Yeah.
Softies and LPS, and only certain ones.
Yeah.
And if you want a bloody massive tang, well, forget it unless you've got a big tank. But if you want limited fish, then absolutely. And it could be, you still need to spend a bit of time on it. It can't just be, I'll leave it, because you've got even things like topping up your freshwater reservoir every week.
Yeah.
Although you can get away without that if you had, a tight lid. But anyway, I absolutely agree. You could do it. A recipe.
But even with that, that's telling someone that they need to top up their fresh water it's not like a long, like really difficult process to understand. I know I saw that a minute ago. I'm assuming he's referring to mine. So I know this isn't the most appropriate place to live stream, but I like them. So
I should put that on the thumbnail, actually. I get a load of people clicking on, wouldn't I? So
yeah, you probably would. So
anyway, sorry, you were saying.
These are literally my favorite pictures in my house. So that's why you'll get to enjoy them.
There we go.
So going back, I do believe that a recipe of specific corals and specific fish could be done. And I also think a very, very basic guide saying you need to check this parameter or these parameters on these days. And if you follow this, you are likely to have a success unless something goes significantly wrong, like a power cut or a disease. Those are and there is a company in America which has tried. I think they partnered with a company like Fluval or something, where they had a select group of 6 corals and a select group of a couple of tank bred fish, and then I think it might have been Fluval provided the tank, and it was almost like an all-in-one setup. This is a reef in your home, which is dangerous because if there's nothing behind. Oh, there you go.
So this is So I looked. Well, I've got a Fluval Evo that I'm setting up at the moment.
Yeah.
And when I was looking for stuff on it, I found this Biota, whatever. It was on Inappropriate Reefer, and they provide you. I think it was quite expensive, and if you bought it all separately, you'd save a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's not really the point. But it was they give you in stage and all this sort of stuff. I don't think they did it right. I'm sure they had a bubble tip anemone was one of the things you get, which I thought, oh, really, it's not probably great. But anyway, that's what. And actually, what you're talking about there, one of my mates has talked to me before about things I should do to expand the Reef Dork empire. And one of the things he says is I should spend time making an ebook and selling an ebook, which isn't necessarily a bad idea.
Yeah.
But I've just never really fancied the idea for various reasons. But if you did a guide, a proper guide that was really carefully thought out and was your recipe, you don't know squat about fish, you can set this tank up, follow these steps, don't skip ahead, don't rush, don't miss things, and you are pretty likely to have success. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's funny that no one's done that, actually, thinking about it. Maybe someone has, and we just haven't seen it.
I actually did start writing an ebook, but I think ebooks are a little bit outdated now. Ebooks had a significant time at one point.
Maybe, yeah.
But I think people, that was before YouTube. And now YouTube's out. People don't want to read an ebook. They want to go to YouTube for that content, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, maybe the alternative. So one of the problems with my videos is I try to keep them short. And that means that I have to cut things out. So I'll give you a little snippet. And really, I'd like to talk about that one line for 10 minutes. So maybe the answer is to do a proper an hour-long video or something where you just sit down and go, right, no messing around. This is what you need to do. But I'm not sure that would get views, to be honest. If it's an hour long and there's no pizzazz or whatever. Anyway. But yeah, I agree with you.
There are other videos you make that have pizzazz in them.
Oh, that hurts.
Just so everyone knows,
where you're on the live stream.
Alex and I are actually quite good friends. So, although, and I have to put this caveat in every time people see us. Even earlier on Instagram, I put a picture of you in where I'd drawn a blonde wig on.
I was trying to post that as the thumbnail for this.
Oh, are you?
But because I upload the live stream through the software, not through YouTube, it wouldn't let me do it. So I was trying to change that to the thumbnail, but I'll be able to do it afterwards. But anyway,
I wasn't sure if that made you annoyed.
you honestly, for a start, this happened when I was like 22 years old. So I've had
you're about 60 now, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah, I am. So I've had a lot of jokes about my follically challenged head. I am very, very comfortable with bald jokes. I encourage it. Take the piss out of me as much as you like. Yeah. It's fine. It might come back. That's the only answer.
Well, I'm very sensitive, so we don't want you to come back to me.
I know that not to be true, but no, you can take the mick out of me as much as you want. I know it's fine, cool, and that applies to everybody in the chat as well. What were we talking about?
I believe it's your turn because I did the hobby's not that hard anymore.
Okay, so this kind of follows on from that. There's something that people often say that is almost become a cliche now, and it's just like people have heard it, so they repeat it. And there's some truth in it, but people often say keeping a mixed reef is harder than keeping an SPS only reef.
Okay,
I think that is total and utter. Where's the mute button? I think that's nonsense.
I was about to just repeat the word that you muted just for fun.
Did you hear? Well, it don't matter to be fair. But
I could tell what you said, but I wasn't sure if I'm allowed to swear on your channel. I swear on my channel.
You can swear. I just don't because people don't like to see people. Anyway. But you can swear. Yeah, it's fine. I don't care.
Just in case anyone wondered what he said. He said bollocks. So just
no.
I'm not going to be invited back, am I?
I think that's rubbish. Because for a start, the dangerous part of that is when people say that SPS, Aquapora, okay, they're the same thing. So you might think, okay, well, I've had a crack at keeping a mixed reef tank. I didn't do very well with it. Maybe it's easier if I keep SPS corals, and particularly Aquapora. It is not. Aquapora are fussy little bar stewards sometimes. And all
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the comment.
What's the
not
comment?
you.
What is it? What's he said?
Someone said they think that this is a life drawing of you.
Is this? I thought the bare cheeks was a life drawing sketch of Reef dog. Do you know what? If I had an arse like that, I'd be quite happy with that, to be honest.
So anyway, sorry, we interrupted you.
This is Joseph. This is serious, please. This is all the comments have been 90% of the comments have been about your artwork.
Do you know what's interesting? In the last live stream, they weren't mentioned once. Not one.
I think it's because I had it like this. So
you couldn't see before, yeah.
And now I think this looks better. But anyway,
me too.
So SPS versus mixed reef. So mixed reef is difficult because you won't be able to get everything thriving. Because guess what? If you turn your lights up, your acans are going to lose all their color and they're going to shrivel up. So soft corals and LPS corals don't like strong light for the most part. Some don't mind. Zoas I find are fine in strong light, but some don't like it. So that's why they need different flow requirements, all these sorts of things, and probably even different nutrients to some extent. Yeah. Although I think that's probably less important. But so that's why it's difficult, because you can provide the right lighting conditions and the right flow for LPS, nice and gentle. But that means that your aquapora aren't going to grow because they need much more light and much more flow. And so that's why it's difficult. But the thing with that is, with a mixed reef tank, and when I'm talking about mixed reef, I mean mostly LPS, SPS with a few, LPS and softies with maybe 20% SPS corals.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you'll find that the SPS corals are the bits, I've got a cat hair in my eye. The SPS corals are the bits that struggle. And if you fix them, then that chance means you've turned your lights up too much, so your LPS are going to struggle. So that's what people mean when they say mixed reef is harder than SPS corals. And if you're an experienced reefer, I think that's probably right. And I think I would have a better shot now having SPS only than I would trying to keep 50% SPS, 50% LPS, acans or whatever. But I think if you're newish to the hobby, SPS are much, much harder than keeping a mixed reef. And I think you'll have success with 70% of your tank if you've got a mixed reef. 30% won't look great. But if you're relatively new to the hobby, that's not bad going. And SPS corals suck out. They will crash your tank like that if you don't keep your eye on the ball, because they suck out a ton of alkalinity, calcium, trace elements, all this sort of stuff. And they're fussy. They might start bleaching, and you're thinking, what the hell's going on?
It's not really a mixed reef if all the SPS die, though. That's just an LPS reef.
But that's if it's SPS. Well, this is very true. But you're fine. And mixed reef, often mixed reef tanks include SPS corals like Montes.
Yes, yeah.
Or Possidipora. That actually don't need a ton of light, and they're okay with a bit less flow. They're still better with more flow in particular, but they don't need it. But if you're trying to keep aquapora in particular, they're hard. It's keeping out. You give someone who's been in the hobby for a year a tank full of aquapora, they'll kill it within 6 months easily. Mixed reef tank, they might kill some of it, but they won't kill all of it.
I agree. I agree with what you say. So
because I'm right.
On this point, I'll let you have it. Although I still think you're arguing the point that an LPS reef is easier than an SPS reef.
I'm not, because you'll still have, and I've had
you'll still have some surviving SPS.
And you might find that actually all your SPS survive and your LPS start sulking.
Yeah, true. If your light's too high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
I never actually realized it. So my 1,000-liter tank, which is it's in that last video I put up today twice. That is a mixed reef. It has LPS and SPS in it. It doesn't have any soft corals in it. Oh no, yeah. Well, it had some recordias, which are anemones. But other than that, it was mostly SPS corals. But I didn't do anything special for that tank. That tank was just luck. I didn't place certain corals in certain places or anything like that because they'll survive there. It literally just ended up like that, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
And I just got lucky.
Yeah. Well, my main tank is a mixed reef technically. I've got zoas. I've got some rock flower anemones, and I've got a few acans and a torch. But I think that the only time that it applies when a mixed reef is genuinely harder than an SPS tank
Yeah.
is having a mixed reef where everything is perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
That absolutely. If you gave me a mixed reef or an aquapora tank and said you've got to make everything perfect, and if you do, I'll give you £1 million, I'll take the acros. So that is the only time I think it's if you're a junior reefer, first couple of years of the hobby, mixed reef is easier.
Yeah. I don't understand Dan Fielding's message.
I like Reef Talk, but I get fed up sometimes with culture of encouraging misogynistic conversation. What have I said that's misogynistic? Is this the art in the background?
I am going to get banned, aren't I? That's not.
Dean, I apologise if I've said something offensive. I didn't mean to. I don't think I have though. But
have you got?
Tell me what you mean.
Have you got the function? You know how it blurs out. You know, like the little it pixelates. Can you just pixelate here? Like I can't get it right there. No, and there. You can pixelate that for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what? If I do this again, I'll come back and there'll be post-it notes covering them.
Oh, hang on a second. There's a bot. Oh no. He's calling Dean. Sorry, he's calling Dean a bot. I thought I saw Les, who's a moderator, saying he's on it, and I wondered if there's a bot in the chat or something. Okay. Anyway, we'll move on from that because to be honest, I don't know what he's talking about. So sorry, my apologies. But anyway, so that's my mixed reef one. What's your next up?
I have this is actually my most soft one. I thought I'd leave my most soft one, for until a bit later. I don't understand the torch coral craze. I don't get it. I have people buy torch corals from me, which are £650 for a single frag, because that's what they sell for, and the wholesaler charges me an absolute ton for them. What people don't realize is you don't make that much money on the expensive corals. You don't make that much money because it's just something that you have to be part of this community, if you see what I mean, of high-end corals. But spending £650 on a torch coral to me is insane. It is. In fact, I have never had a torch coral really, other than in the farm, and I think I did have a green one a long time ago. Just don't get it. I don't like them. Don't understand them. I don't know why people like them.
This comment would go down very well on Ultimate Reef because that's people have this conversation quite regularly.
Oh, do they?
Part of the reason they're so popular.
Got banned from there ages ago.
Oh, okay. Why? What did you do?
Too controversial.
Too controversial. Well, there's a story there, so we'll come back to that. But yeah. So this came about, I think, a lot of it because of blue LEDs, right? Because a torch under blue LEDs looks very different to what it used to have done under halides, for example.
Yeah, but why are there no £600 frog spawns? Why are there no £600 hammers? Why is it specifically? Because
the people collecting it have clocked on.
I don't know. I think
and the reason I say that, do you know what? That's a sweeping statement, and that might not be right. But I've spoken to people who sell corals, and I know, and that these people are not making massive markups. So there's one. I've been looking for a nice torch that I think is perfect, and I've seen one. And this is about a year I've been looking, and for a single head, £1,500. It is a bloody nice torch, but there's no way I'm paying.
No, it's not that nice.
But there's no way I'm paying £1,500. However, I know that the markup on that from the seller is not that much.
No, I know.
I know how much they paid for the colony.
Wait,
it's not like it's not like.
Is this a shop near you?
It's the Ocean Project.
Yeah, I think I even know the coral. I think I might have seen the coral at the wholesaler.
They've had it for a while.
Yes.
6 months to a year.
It probably if it's 6 months, then yeah, I might have seen it. Because I remember talking to the supplier. I said, "Who is going to buy that? No one will buy that." And then like a week later, they went, "Yeah, Ocean Project bought it."
Yeah, well, there you go. And it's a lovely, lovely coral.
Isn't it it's like yellow, isn't it? But not like gold. It's like really, really yellow.
Yeah.
I kind of think I remember what it was roughly.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. And to be fair, for the right person, they'll buy it. But the point I'm making is the sellers, the person selling that the Ocean Project, are not making. He's not going to retire when he sells that coral.
I know,
because he's
it's
not making
exactly the same
£1,000
for me.
Yeah, exactly. So when I say this is the collectors charging it, that's possibly ignorant because I don't know for a fact. But what I do know is this end is not where all the profit is going.
Yeah, I do wonder where the profit is if you think about it.
Yeah,
because it won't be
won't
be the person that collected it.
Well, maybe it must be a middleman somewhere. Because, like you say, if a hammer or a frog spawn, oh goddamn battery, can go for 40 quid and come all the way over here, then surely it's exactly the same for a torch. It's just that there's more fat in the price.
It literally comes down to corals have no price, really. The price is determined by the hobbyists and what people are willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
When probably about I've sent you an email recently. You saw the first piece of grafted Montipora, which I bought from the Netherlands. I can't remember who it came from. Was it Netherlands? You remember you saw the email, didn't you? You saw the invoice. It was £200, wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you want to say where it was from?
You can say where it was from. I just don't remember.
De Jong.
No, it wasn't De Jong.
Oh, was it not?
No, it was from one of the online sellers over there.
All right, carry on. I'll look it up.
you can look it up. But definitely, I've never bought anything from De Jong. So,
okay.
It's so yeah, that cost me £200, which to me was worth £200, if you see what I mean. And then gradually, as it grows and other people grow it, the value of the coral comes down. So is that coral worth £200 still, or is it worth £50, or is it worth £5? It's worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
I don't think the seller's on it. It's just some on that invoice.
I can't find it. I'll give up. But...
It doesn't matter anyway. But It was either from Reef or there was one other place I used to buy from before Brexit. But yeah, so coral has no value. And the other reason for this, when you get a box of imported corals, the corals there's one price for the whole box. So you can divide that price up evenly between the corals, and then you might have a Hystrix for £40.
Yeah,
which you're never going to sell a Hystrix for £40, or you have to spread the price based on what people will perceive the coral as. So I have a black and red Lobophilia in the coral farm at the moment.
Okay.
I've never seen one before. I have no idea what that would sell for.
Oh, okay. Black's unusual. I've only seen sun corals that are black.
It is my favorite coral. It's not on the website because I won't sell it. Because I've never seen a black and red one. It's like Darth Maul. I'll try and get you a picture of it later.
Yeah, send it. Yeah.
But when people see it, I show them it, and they're like, "Nah, it's not green." I'm like, "What? Everything's green.
Everything's green or red.
Why don't you want this black and red one?"
Do you mind if I say what that coral you bought for 200 quid was?
Yeah, it's a grafted Montipora.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and that for me, because coral pricing is ridiculous. I did a video on this ages ago.
Yeah.
And I like all my videos. I try to be balanced, so I wasn't saying it's stupid. I was presenting both sides of the story. But it is pricing is ridiculous, and we're the idiots who fall for it. And if I see a coral with a fancy name, I'm more, even though this is not my attitude, I'm more likely to buy it.
Yeah.
And if it's
you're more likely to buy it.
Yeah, because I'll think, it must be rare then. I like to think I don't actually follow through and do that. And I try to choose corals that I like the look of. But we're so stupid when it comes to a coral with a name or a coral that's rare. Ooh, so because like that grafted Monty, for me, some people will love it. But for me, it's red and green. And I'm like, so
everything's red and green, yeah.
Exactly. So and I kind of feel like I want one because it is cool, because it's like you don't get many corals with blended colours like that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, there's no way I'd pay big bucks for it.
I'm trying to find that Lobophilia so I can send it to you. Yeah, I found it. I don't know if you'll be able to put it on the screen if I
will. If you email it to me, I'll pull it up. Yeah. But
what about if I WhatsApp it to you?
Yeah, that worked too.
There you go.
But yes, coral prices, and it's our fault. Okay, so consumers are the people who want corals with coral names, because most customers will go into a shop, and I've spoken to shops about this before, and they will say, "What coral is that?" People like you and me, and people who've been in the hobby a bit longer, might say, "Sorry, is that an Aquapora young guy? You know, a barley green slime or whatever."
Yeah.
But most people will go in and say, "What's that called?" And someone will say, "Oh, it's an Aquapora sarmentosa," and you're like, "Oh, don't care." And then if someone says, but if the next person says, "Oh, it's a Cookie Monster sarmentosa," you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's good," and that will sell more.
I like a bit of Cookie Monster acro.
So I've got your Lobo.
That was the day. That was the day they arrived.
Such a hard on, frankly.
You don't understand. I love it. I really love it. I don't know why. It's one of the ones I like. I could have just shown them on my phone, couldn't I?
But yeah. But that's I can't get up. Oh, right.
But you have to realize, I see hundreds of corals. I've seen Lobos in orange and green and blue and everything. I've never seen a black and red one. So how much is that black and red one worth? You tell me. You put a price on it. So you don't like it. So you're going to say it's worth 20 quid.
If you gave that to me for free,
yeah,
I'd be like, I'll put it somewhere out of the way.
God. Whereas for me, it's like priceless because I won't sell it.
Yeah.
So a coral is worth what someone is willing to pay for it, and that's it basically. There is obviously a value to it, and there is a cost to getting them here with regards to shipping. But when you ship corals over, they're mostly all the corals have the same shipping price.
Well, that's what Marvel Guy says. Perceived value is a thing in all collectibles. And do you know what? There was this was in the news this week. There's a bottle of whiskey. Sorry, a cask of whiskey that was sold for £18 million, £16 million, a lot. and it was a 1978 bottle or whatever, single malt. I don't know. But you then look at that and you find whiskey collectors. And there's this guy in Vietnam, very impressive room, but he's got this whiskey room. And he'd spent £12 million on the whiskies in there. And I would go in there and be like, well, that's disgusting. Like you could give me a glass of that or a shot of that,
and you wouldn't know.
The most expensive whiskey in the world. I'll be like, can I have a Stella Artois instead, please? But for 16 million, Kraken says. So, but and even someone bought me a bottle of Oban, which is a nice whiskey, and it was disgusting. It was like, it was horrible. I'm a chav.
I once had 2 glasses of a £600 bottle of red wine, and about 45 minutes later, I had the most expensive piss of my life.
Exactly.
So basically, in Australia, I was having Christmas with the CEO of some big company. He was friends with my parents. He used to live here. He wasn't anyone that was particularly special. He just went there and all of a sudden he became the CEO.
Yeah.
And it was given to him as a gift. And he said, "Do you want to try this?" And I went, "Go on then." I couldn't tell the difference between that wine and any other red wine. And the other people were there sipping it like this. "Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so smooth." And I was like, "Yeah, it's so red winey."
Do you know what? I went to, and we'll get back onto fish in a minute, but I went to my partner's uncle took us to a Michelin-starred restaurant in Edinburgh. Yeah, and that's not really my sort of thing. I'm not. I like nice food.
You can tell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm too much of a chav. And we were ordering drinks at the start when we were waiting for the food, or before we waited to be seated. And there was this massive drinks menu, and they both ordered these exotic-sounding cocktails with sophisticated names. And the guy, the uncle, he'd been in there all the time. It's his scene. They knew him because he was a regular. And I ordered a Schiehallion. And I know. But so the uncle was like he looked impressed. He was like, "Oh, I've not heard of that. That sounds nice. Wonder what that is." And the waiter brought it out, and they were having these fancy cocktails, and it was a lager.
Really? I was like,
all I want is a lager. I don't want a 200 quid glass of wine. I want a pint of Stella.
So you knew what it was then, I assume.
Yeah, because it said. I was looking down the list, going, I don't want a cocktail. I want a beer. Anyway, we'll move back on to coral. So, and the thing for me then is with that Lobo as an example, and with plenty of other corals that are expensive.
You're about to bruise my ego.
I know, yeah. But things like that, and people are laughing at me because I'm going in asking for a lager in a Michelin-starred restaurant. But anyway, so the thing is, with corals like that grafted Monty, that you can pay extortionate money for. 100 quid easily for a frag. Anything that's slightly unusual would be very expensive. For me, I would pay next to nothing for that. But for something like this, strawberry shortcake, I mean, that cost me not a lot of money, but that for me is an absolutely stunning coral.
Yeah.
And I would have paid 200 quid for a 1 inch frag of that happily.
Really?
Because it's so nice.
I gotta get you in when I get new SPS in then.
I know. But that's not because it's a special coral. This is like the point that someone made earlier. It's subjective. So that to me is amazing and that's worth money.
Yeah.
But
whereas I wouldn't. I like you offended me with my Lobo. I wouldn't buy that.
You can see that venom on your face. You're like, bloody Lobo.
The grafted Monty, I bought as an investment. I knew I could grow it and I knew I could sell it.
Yeah, for sure.
So there are some things which I spent £350 on a Trachophilia once, and that was probably the most expensive coral I ever bought for myself.
Right. Okay.
And it was pink. It was like a bright pink. I mean, you didn't see pink ones at the time. You only saw green ones. And I remember I never buy things with my own money. Really, I usually steal the money. No, it was credit. So I had £350 in credit with a fish shop because I gave them coral.
Yeah.
And then they gave me this one coral back in return. And it's like guilt-free spending. And I would never have spent that much. If it was my own money, if you see what I mean, I would never have bought it. It's the same as the gem tang. The gem tang was bought with coral, basically.
Yeah, frank. Yeah.
So it's.
So and on the point of torch corals as well, because that's where you started on. So I bought. I think my most expensive coral. I'm funny because in a way I'm tight, and I won't spend big bucks on some things.
Tell me about it.
But at the same time, like as I said in my video the other week, I've spent 10 grand a year for the last 5 years on my tank. So if I want something, I know it's crazy, but a lot of that is because I make money from YouTube, so it's free money. If I didn't have a separate income dedicated for it, I probably wouldn't be spending that kind of money. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I spend a lot of money on the hobby, obviously, but some things I'm selective with, and I'm like, and they don't have value to me. The most expensive coral I bought, which I've told you about before, was a torch coral. It was a dragon soul.
Yeah,
dragon soul. I got
color.
Hellfire from you. That is nice.
Yeah.
But the dragon soul, in fact, actually, that's losing a bit of its color as well. Maybe I'm going to be strong. Yeah,
whoa! You've had that for like a year now.
I want my money back. But the dragon soul cost me, I think, 220 quid, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a nice coral. It is still a nice coral. But when I got it, it was nicer, and it was in a tank with much lower lighting, much less strong light. This goes back to the old mixed reefing, I guess. It's just like if you brought somebody who don't know anything about corals, they'd be like, "Oh, that's nice and wavy," but it wouldn't keep their attention for long.
Yeah.
And if I then said, "What's your favorite coral?" they'd be like Xenia or whatever.
Yes, that's exactly what they say.
And no one would be like, "Oh wow!" If I then said that's my most expensive coral, people would be like, "It's brown, isn't it?"
Yeah, it is funny. The one coral which always stands out to everyone who comes to see the farm, everyone, is the jawbreaker mushroom. So not the Electus jawbreaker, like a true jawbreaker, and it's because it's so bright orange. It's like the jack-o'-lantern. It's like a mushroom that's that sort of color. And those are they're the ones. I've had it for 2 years, or maybe even longer than that now. Still never produced a baby. Never. I got it from a guy in Southampton. And I got that and a kryptonite mushroom. And
is it on your website?
What, the jawbreaker? No. The Electus is, I think, but I'm not sure it's a great picture of the Electus. But that Electus I've had for so long. It might be under jawbreak it's possible something. The Electus I've had for so long, it's now produced 3 other babies. Whereas the true jawbreaker does not. It takes that's why they're so expensive. It takes a long time for them to reproduce. So not all mushrooms are created equally.
Bounce mushrooms are another thing that they are for me the same as torch corals. I don't get bounce mushrooms. They are
but
cool.
You can frag them.
You get them.
That's why.
but like they're cool and it's different. And those little bubbly morphy things are that's interesting to look at, and that's why we're here basically, variety.
Yeah.
And it's I appreciate that. But when I sit and if you look at if you see a photo online, like a proper photo, macro photo, oh man, that you can see all the contours and all the different colors and all this sort of stuff. They look awesome. When you see them,
you sound like the sort of person who goes to Michelin restaurants.
Well, exactly, and orders a pint of lager. We've got fish and chips, mate. But yeah, so if you look up close, they look awesome. Whenever I see them in a shop, and they stand out because they are a bit unusual, I look at them and I'm like, I don't want that. Like, I just don't get it. And it's not because there is a crap coral. It's down to taste. But if they were for sale for a tenner, I wouldn't have it. And yet people would pay 500 quid for it. And some people love them.
Some people pay more than 500 quid for it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's but also you can also kill them if you do get it wrong. If you try and frag them, or even if it's just in the tank. So as I said, I had a very expensive one that just disappeared the other day, floated around. So
well, opinionated reefer would calc paste those mushrooms.
Oh,
like they're Aptasia.
That really is controversial.
Yeah.
It's good that the comments are joining in. Actually, I'm interested in what not yours, Alex, but the comment section, because we've still got half an hour left, I assume. I'm assuming we're going till 10 like usual. I'm interested in the most controversial thing in the comment section. So we will read them.
An invite, that is.
We will read them, and then together, Alex and I will see which is the most controversial thing about the hobby that's in it. Remember, it's got to be true. It's got to be like partly realistic. You can't just say something really, really controversial.
I've put a comment. I'm trying to pin it, but I don't think I can do it on the software. But anyway, yeah. Let's see what someone said earlier. I can't remember who it was. Someone said earlier, my controversial opinion is that low nutrients don't cause dinoflagellates.
I don't know enough to be able to comment, if I'm honest.
I don't necessarily disagree, but I think this is like alkalinity swings and coral stripping.
Yeah.
So some people say alkalinity swings, like Telegram I had on the other week.
Yeah.
Teddy Graham. I had on the other week, and he was saying that. So he's of the opinion that alkalinity swings don't kill corals.
Yeah.
And I said I think I agree. It might if there's an underlying issue that might tip the coral over the edge. An alk swing might tip the coral over the edge. And I think with dinoflagellates, I think if you get zero nutrients and other conditions are present, then you will get dino. So I think it has something to do with zero nutrients, is my opinion.
Yeah.
I think, should I say?
Billy Sherwood's just put one that's quite interesting where it says, I think most marine tanks look the same. And to some extent, it's true. It is true. It's funny.
And we all think they're special.
What's come up.
This is. I've joined a Facebook group recently for nano tanks.
Yeah.
And that is, not taking anything away from them. An average tank is still an awesome tank, but I do often find myself just thinking same. Yeah. He's right.
That's a winner for me. So I haven't seen many others yet, but
Andy's trying to wind me up here because we've had a conversation on Ultimate Reef. So I love blue LEDs. I think they're awesome, and I think
your tank is mostly white.
It's during the day, but it ramps up and down in the evening. So I don't want 100% blue LEDs all the time. I think that's bad. And people often, in my video from Friday, I talked about spectrum because people are obsessed with getting the spectrum right, and people often say, "Oh, blue LEDs are better than white LEDs for coral growth." Just don't worry about it. But I love white lights, and most of the time my tank is white light. But there's something amazing about the glow of corals under blue LEDs for a couple of hours in the evening that I would never have it 100% of the time, but I just love the evening.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree. Yours is a little bit too white for me.
Do you think it's too white?
I do think it's too white. Well, then again, acros look better under white light, I think, in the day. But yours is, and as I said, your tank is amazing. And I've never seen your tank under blue light, so I don't actually know what it would look like. But it is, when I remember seeing your tank thinking, you don't see tanks this white that often.
That's funny because I think it's relatively blue. But anyway, we'll move on to controversial opinions from the audience, and we've got Sean in the house who's asking what he's missed. We've been talking about one of your corals, Sean.
Yes, we did.
So if you have a wealthy enough customer, you might get a sale. In which case, I want my usual 100% commission. Marvel Guy says you don't need a skimmer.
I'm waiting for you to go first.
On a small tank, I agree. And
Yeah.
I think you're wasting your time. On a nano tank, go on.
Technically, it's true. We were about to say
get by with
this, but technically, it's true.
Yeah, so literally, do you need a skimmer to run a reef tank, a fish tank?
No.
No, you do not.
Yes.
On a nano tank, long term, I agree. And actually, my tank up here, 150 liters, which is borderline quite big. I don't have a skimmer, but there is no way I would run my main tank without a skimmer. And I think you borderline need it. You don't need it for sure. But you've seen something else, haven't you?
Every time so if I'm smiling, I'm reading the thing. Someone said using tap water for auto top off. That's gotta be. That's terrible.
Don't do it. Tap water. Some people love tap water.
Are you actually doing this, or is this something you're just saying you're doing to be controversial?
No, it's the tap water. It depends, which is the answer for everything in this hobby, really. Yeah. If I use my tap water, my TDS is about 350. I feel bad flushing my toilet with that stuff, frankly.
Yeah.
But if I use tap water in my tank, my acros would not thank me. But if you live in the Scottish Highlands and your TDS is 10 and it's all nice stuff, you're all right.
See, I can't help it because I'm laughing when at some of the things. Have you seen what Rookie Reef has put?
Rookie Reefer, where's that? Buying a Hannah ammonia. Yes, you are right. There are so many Hannah checkers that are such a waste of money. The magnesium one.
Yeah, but you understand why he's put that.
Oh, because of your video?
Yes.
Right.
He's the person I'm talking about.
Oh, I see. So did he buy one?
Yes.
Right. You wasted your money, Reef Rookie. Rookie mistake. But you recognise that now.
Yes.
But okay.
And now he's gone and bought all the correct test kits under someone's advice.
Andy says blue LED at night is okay. And to be honest, I don't like tanks that are blue all the time. Because anyway, never mind. We've done that. Let's go on to more controversial opinions then. So what else have we got? This is a controversial one. London Aquatic Design. Coral acclimation is a myth.
I agree.
Throw them in. You agree?
Well, dip them first and then put them in. Corals, the way they... this is what I was told. I don't know if this is true or not. The way that they absorb water is basically essentially a form of acclimation for themselves. Because as they pass water through their membranes, it's slowly changing the water that's in... you see what I mean? That's what I was told. I don't know if that's true. But that's what... And what I do know is there's no... when I have a box of 30 corals come in, I'm not sitting there drip acclimating them all. I dip them all, but when I put them in the dip, they go straight into the tank water, obviously from the tank and the dip as well. So I definitely don't acclimate them. I tell everyone to acclimate them.
Yeah.
But I don't do it myself.
It's funny because I see coral farms like yourself with acclimation guides, and I always think, no way. But I temperature acclimate and then I dip and then I chuck them in.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah.
Why not? It takes half an hour. There's no point not doing it. And I actually think this might be the same sort of thing as alk swings not being the main cause. If you don't acclimate a coral, it might kill it because it was weak already.
Yeah.
And maybe the acclimation would have helped it. But this is what's his name? Jake Adams says this.
Yeah.
So
is that where it came from?
Maybe, yeah.
I've seen an interesting one from Chris Tate.
Chris Tate.
I'll let you do one.
Do you know what? Your question, which I should have asked at the start, has thrown open it's got sparked everyone into action. So
it's good because basically, firstly, you're getting YouTube algorithm, everyone's commenting, so it's good for you. And the other thing is, we don't have to finish our list. We've done it. We've made ourselves look bad.
The rest of my list is pretty rubbish. But anyway, I'll try to get through the big one. So a maintained canister filter is okay for a reef tank. I don't agree for the most part. I think you can have success, maybe with softies and LPS.
Yes.
But I think you'll struggle. A canister filter, you must have had one in the past, canister filter for freshwater tanks.
You talking to me?
Yeah.
I've never had a freshwater tank.
Oh, really? So
no.
Canister filters are.
I did start with a canister filter though.
Right. Okay. There you go. They're a pain in the backside to maintain.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I basically just never maintained it. That's true.
But you can to an extent. And actually, Simple Aquariums, Lauren in Australia, runs 2 canister filters and has a nice reef tank.
Yes, but I saw that.
If you asked me to put a canister, if Fluval said, Alex, do you want to do a sponsored video where you put a canister filter on your tank? I'd say, how many millions of pounds are you going to pay me for it?
Yeah, you're going to cover for all the cost of all the corals in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, so there we go. Controversial opinion: bare bottom tanks look dumb, unnatural. Agreed. I think that's not controversial.
I agree. I don't like that.
They do look stupid. I'm not. So, it's not necessarily a bad idea, but they do look stupid. The sun is awful for growing colourful corals.
True, I believe.
The sun is awful for showing coral coloration. Because have you been scuba diving?
Yeah, loads of times.
Yeah, okay. So they look brown, don't they?
Yes, yeah. The other thing, I remember Tidal Garden saying that he had tremendous amount of issues in one of his videos from the sun, because he was using the sun to grow corals. Originally, he doesn't do it, I don't think, anymore. Yeah. But I know it was like there was too much light from the sun that was causing the issue, not a lack of light, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, because you can't control it, can't you? You can't turn it down on the app, using the Mobius app.
Yeah, true.
Okay. What else? You say you saw? Do you know what? Let's go through.
There was one that I think it was from Chris. It said something about hobbyists selling corals for the same rate that shops sell them for.
Oh man, word. Where's that? Find it.
Oh, it's from Rich. My comment is. Oh no, not Rich. Where is it?
Well, whatever. Let's there you
go. Chris Tate, hobbyist propagating, and it's 9:33.
Got it. Hang on.
We're going to have a different opinion on this.
Really?
Yeah.
There's no way you're supporting that.
There's no way that a hobbyist should sell corals for the same price as a shop.
I hate it. And this is a prime example of I wouldn't make a video saying this, although I'm making a video saying this. I hate it when hobbyists sell corals for shop prices.
Why?
Even if it's a semi-rare. Well, actually, no, semi-rare is acceptable. But as far as I'm concerned, because the hobby, this is my opinion, all right? So if this is what you do and you sell, I'm not saying you're an idiot or you're wrong.
That's exactly what he's saying.
I just don't like it. And because I don't have, if I sell corals, if I sell frags, I don't have to make a profit. I don't have to cover my overheads. I'm doing it because half the time with my zoas, it's doing me a favor because I have too bloody many of them.
Yeah, true.
So I don't. When I sell zoas, I've sold some to you in the past, I don't sell a single head. Yeah. I sell a frag with 10 or 15 heads, and it'll be for 15 quid for the price you'll pay a single head elsewhere. But I do that partly because it would take me ages to frag them all up and sell them all separately.
Yeah.
But also because I want to help people out. Not that I'm like some charity or whatever. I still sell them for cash. I don't give it away. But there's no way I should be selling corals for shop prices. Justify it, Ryan.
I'm going to justify it.
Okay.
Let's pick a coral for example. So let's say that Raja Rampage coral. You know, the chalice.
Yeah.
So for someone to get that to grow, they are taking a risk when they buy that coral. So let's say they bought that coral for £200 or whatever, because obviously the prices were crazy for that coral recently, and then gradually it's come down in price, which is what always happens with all corals. So if they've grown that and fragged it, although it hasn't cost them anything, it's still a risk which they took. If you see what I mean. So they should be rewarded for that risk, because let's put it this way: if that coral died, no one else is going to suffer, are they? Do you see what I mean?
I completely get it, and to a point, I think that's right.
it's unusual for hobbyists to get corals for exact shop prices. That would be very unusual. What usually happens is the shops sell the coral, and then the coral gradually comes down in price as hobbyists sell it.
Yes. Yeah.
So the hobbyists are actually driving the costs of corals down, which is good for hobbyists, but not good for shops and me.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Here we go.
So, but you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do. Yeah.
I have, for years, long before the coral farm, I always bought coral to basically grow out and sell. You can see I bought that grafted Montipora before the coral farm even existed, because I knew I could grow it and sell it. It also it's about, if there was no incentive to make money from it, they would just keep it in their tank, which then actually inflates the cost more as well.
So Sean agrees with you. So the caveat to this is the Raja Rampage is a great example, partly because I bought a Raja Rampage off a fellow hobbyist. Nice guy, I know him, met him a few times, think he might have bought some stuff off me, whatever anyway. And I paid 150 quid for a frag with 3 eyes, I think. Now this was, I don't know, a year, 18 months ago. And at that point, I'd been looking for one for a little while, couldn't find one anywhere. No shops had them. It was only hobbyists. As far as I'm concerned, 150 quid was a fair price from a hobbyist, albeit steep. And I would have sold it for less. I think at that time that was a fair price.
Yeah.
Because if it was in a shop, it would have been more than that. But that is still, so this is where I probably differ from some people in the chat, because some people will be like, no, that should be 50 quid. I think that's fair enough. If it's slightly unusual, like I bought a home wrecker. I don't know if it is legitimately a home wrecker, but that's what it was sold as. And I know the guy, and I think he anyway, whatever. I bought a home wrecker for 150 quid for a 1-inch frag from a fellow hobbyist. Yeah. And I sold a 1-inch frag a year later after it had grown out for 75 quid to make some of them, or 100 quid maybe, to make some of the money back.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair enough, but I don't think you should be charging shop prices. I think you should be offering a discount, at least 30% or something.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think it'd be unusual, unless it's something particularly rare, to get exactly a shop price, if you see what I mean. But I do. It's interesting that this is one of the things that we have different opinions on, because I've always used that money to buy more coral, if you see what I mean. So the person I'm selling the coral to, their money should be in my pocket so that I can buy more coral, rather than it being in their pocket so they can buy more coral. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so I understand what you're saying, but there's like a hobbyist side of me from when I very first started, and I used to give loads of coral away completely for free.
Yeah.
And then there's like the business side of me as well, and it's interesting to see that some of the shops that are in the chat are saying similar things, where they're like what Sean said, where he's torn.
And I get your argument. And so this is one point that Kraken make. A shop loses 20% to the tax man. Home farm probably
I know. That hurts me now, because I've gone over the threshold, and I do declare everything. And it is when I went over the threshold, it wasn't until then did I realize, and I actually spoke to a shop. I said, I never realized that you were competing against it was an unfair race.
See, because
it was Maidenhead Aquatics in Crawley. I said to the owner there, we were competing on different levels, because I didn't have to charge VAT, whereas now I do have to charge VAT. So it legitimizes me a bit more in the industry, and it also makes more of an even playing field, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So it definitely, I do understand from that perspective with regards to as well that hobbyists don't have that either. Maybe I'm swinging over to you. I'm coming over to your side.
But do you know, so Don was talking about tax, and I think most hobbyists don't realise they have to pay tax. I think after £1,000, you can earn £1,000 of passive income effectively, apart from your job, without paying tax. I declare everything I sell for tax. I don't make a profit at the moment. I will this year, but that means I don't have to pay tax. But there'll come a time, maybe this year, when I'll sell a frag for 15 quid and I'll have to pay 40% income tax on that.
Yeah. Well, imagine having that income tax as well as the VAT tax.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you pay you're a limited company, are you? Do you pay corporation tax?
No, I'm actually done as a sole trader at the moment.
Fair enough.
So
Anyway.
it wasn't, as I said, only the last month have I had to start charging VAT, and it definitely makes a difference. And it actually, as I said, I had a lot of trouble originally from shops, and I didn't really understand. And it wasn't until I started to realize that we weren't on an even playing field. We definitely weren't, and I understood why all the wholesalers wouldn't deal with me, because it's about protecting them.
You've got an unfair advantage.
Yeah, it is. It's and to some extent, I do still have some level of an unfair advantage, but it isn't. It's nowhere near what it was before. The VAT 20% is a killer.
Changed it. So the other thing with this is that this is, and when I said at the start, this is me and this is how I do it, and I'm not saying you're a moron if you do it this way. It's different. So I don't feel like I need to make a profit on corals because I can afford the hobby without selling corals for a profit. If you can't afford that and you need to make money, it's more acceptable.
Yeah.
So it's a sliding scale.
I think on this one we will agree to. It'll be like murky because, as I said, I do completely understand your perspective, and I actually think that to some extent you understand mine as well.
I completely do. I hadn't thought about it before, but I get it.
Yeah.
Because actually, and that's effectively, if I sell corals, and I've thought about starting a website, I will at some point selling corals, but I don't want.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I don't. Ryan, you still?
What's all this?
I'm going to call it Prestige Reef Dog. Trade off your goodwill, but at some point I do it. But I don't want it to be like a proper shop, and I'm kind of a little bit reluctant because I'm just going to be selling what I've got, and there's not going to be regular stuff on there. But I'm a little bit aware that I've got a small following that will give me an unfair advantage, and I will almost be competing with shops, and I'll be selling for mate rate, so I'll be selling an utter chaos for a tenth of the price or half the price at least of what a shop would. So I'm
a tough road ahead of you.
Well, this is the thing. I'm a little reluctant to do it. If I do it, it's going to be small scale. So I'm not.
Yeah.
Don't think I'm going to be treading on toes, but I'm aware of the risks with that. And
the thing that was at the very beginning when I decided to do this, a lot of the wholesalers said to me, "Whatever you do, don't just go in there really, really cheap. Be fair. Try and so sell your corals not based on them being the cheapest, but based on them being the best. If you see what I mean. Which is why I focus so much on trying to make them pest free. It's if you just sell everything for a couple of percent markup, then it really fair. If you see what I mean. Whereas if you looked at the website, most of my corals would be pretty similar rates to other shops. Because then that is a more even playing field again. And that's what the wholesaler said to me. They said you will have trouble with people not liking what you do, but you have to show them that you're not going in there and selling a histric frag for £4. You sell it for a reasonable rate to keep the value of corals higher. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I do. So this is a point that Michael Piper says it's not an unfair advantage. I've worked hard to get the following, which I have. And you and I were talking about how hard it is, Boohoo and all this, but how hard it is to run a YouTube channel, and it's hard work. Yeah, all right. And so that's fine. I've got no problem. If I'm working hard, I expect a reward. But the difference is with that, if I was selling at shop prices, then I think it's probably fair enough. But I'm not. I would be massively undercutting shops, and that is where I think is a bit unfair because I should be competing with other hobbyists selling corals, but by having a Reef Dork website and having people who know who I am and want to buy from me, that puts me in competition with the shop. So that's why I think it might be unfair.
You only have a very limited growing space.
That's the thing. That's why I think it'll be okay because I'm not going to. It's not like I'm going to be selling thousands of pounds of corals a week.
What will actually most likely happen is that you will start the website and then you'll sell out really quickly, and then there'll be nothing on the website for months. because you'll take months to regrow them.
And as a result, people won't come back because they'll go on for every day for 3 weeks and nothing new will be on there. But I'm bored now.
Yeah, it's you to do this as a business. You, especially if you're sort of growing them as well. You need to. It needs for me to be 100%. Obviously, some corals you can't grow. You can't grow Trachyphyllias and things like that.
Yeah.
But for me to be 100% growing, I would need a lot bigger farm than I've got.
I would love there to be a farm like that in the UK, by the way.
Eventually.
But and that's if I ever did it, which I'm not. Don't worry, Prestige Reef Talk doesn't exist.
No, Prestige Reef Talk is going to be a collaboration.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. That could be. Do you know what you talked about a couple of weeks ago about coming on more regularly onto the stream, and I said we could set up our own channel. I was going to suggest Prestige Reef Talk as the name.
Really?
It's a bit lame, but I don't know. But
it is lame.
I can't remember what I was going to say then. But anyway, we'll move on from that because this isn't an advert for me selling corals. So Ocean Project, Sean says he knows he's expensive, but you will all agree the quality is what makes us special. And so this is what you're saying effectively.
I've never even been to the Ocean Project, but I know already from the reputation of what other people have said, that is an excellent shop. It's from what you've said, what the pictures you see. It's like the care and attention that you see in like the social media. I know that will be an excellent shop and is worth for me going. Maybe not going for the banter. As I said, I'm a bit fragile. But that is exactly right. People buy from people.
Yeah, so you say that all the time.
Yes, that is true, and that's the one benefit that I have. People are taking my corals from me, who they essentially know. This is always the thing that I find interesting. When people come to the coral farm and meet me, they know everything about me, and I have no idea who they are. So all the time, it's a really weird experience for me. But that's why they buy from me, because they know who I am.
Yeah, but so that's true to a point. And Sean, you and Sean as well. I buy from both of you occasionally because I'm tight, but I buy from both of you.
We know.
Partly because I get on with you both, and you can have a laugh, and I know I can trust you.
Yeah.
But if you were the nicest guy in the world, you were hilarious, you were great banter, and you were just the most stand-up, trustworthy guy in the world, but your corals were shit, I wouldn't bother. So it's not just that. It's there's more to it than just one thing. And I'm making Sean blush. Well, I talk about
you or me.
Yeah. I talk about the Ocean Project quite a lot on this. I'm probably not that much, I think, but it's a really good shop, and I really like it. And the thing is, when you get on with someone like you and I do, but also when there's somewhere good, you feel compelled to tell people about it. And it's not because it's not like I'm sponsored. Neither of you guys are paying me, but I'm like, do you know what? I like these people and I like what they do. So I'm going to tell people about it, because when you find something that's awesome, like this is with some of the product reviews I make, there's some kit. I just think this is so awesome. I want to tell people about it. And if there's something really good, shops and this sort of stuff as well, I'm like, people need to know.
No, I agree. That's why when I went to Kraken, I was really impressed by Kraken. They didn't ask. They didn't even know I was going to do it. I never told them. But just to go, by the way, this is a good shop. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, completely.
So I think the controversial ones have slowed down.
They have. It's because we've gone into. There've been some belting controversial ones though that have been really.
I know. I was impressed.
Good idea. Wish I thought of that earlier on. But yeah. So I think have you got any? Oh, hang on a second. There's Radical Reef. Have you been to Radical Reef? They're good with. That's in Leeds, I think. It's miles away.
I did. I didn't get into Radical Reefs. I couldn't find it.
Oh, really?
I think it's on like an industrial estate.
Yeah.
And I was short for time because I was going to meet someone. But I was about half an hour early, so I thought I'd quickly pop in just to have a look to see if it's there. And I literally couldn't find it, and I was going late, so I didn't stay.
Fair enough. And he wasn't suggesting that was a controversial opinion. But yeah, no, I've not been. And there are loads of shops up north that I'd like to go to. I think I went to the Abyss in Manchester. Is it in Stockport?
It's really dark. I have been there. When you go in, it's really dark inside in the fish section.
I think I went years ago, maybe before I even set up the channel.
Yeah.
But I can't. But it's like the signature frags. I know a competitor of yours, but I'd like to go there. But it's bloody miles away. So it would take me.
I have no problem with signature.
No, I'm only messing around. But it would take me.
No, as in, so some like in the past, he has bought corals from me, and I bought corals from him. It's like a mutually beneficial relationship.
I like that. But it would take me 7 hours round trip in the car to get there, and there are other shops as well. Kraken, I'd love to go to. Dom seems like he does videos from time to time with the Friday Night Gang, and he just comes across as a really nice guy. Yeah. And his shop, everybody, like you talk about his shop, people talk about his shop well. I'd love to go there, but it's bloody miles.
It was so relaxed. Now, when I go into shop, sometimes it's a bit tense, but it just, I don't know. So I usually go in, but don't tell anyone. I don't, and see if I'm recognized, because I quite like just being able just to go in and just have a look around and not have the discussion about the coral farm or what I do or the channel. It's just nice just to go in. It's funny. When I went into Kraken, nothing was said, and then I asked them if I could start filming their torch coral tank, and it was only then that they said that they knew who I was, and we had a very nice, relaxed conversation. They basically went, "We don't care what you're doing." It was really like a pleasant experience. Do you want tea, coffee? It was just
like that.
It was just nice. Whereas I'm not joking. There are shops which I went to for probably 10 years, which I'm no longer welcome in, which as far as I'm concerned is sad.
Yeah, it's really sad.
But it just is what it is.
It is. There's a couple of other controversial things too that are good, I think. This one, controversial that lighting is super important. I'm seeing both high and low. Does lighting matter that much? I think this is a good one because as far as I'm concerned, I don't think lighting is anywhere near as important as you think it is when you're in the hobby. And it's understandable why you think it's massively important. But it's like buying a Radion is not going to mean that you're going to have success, despite the fact that it is a very good light. Not saying it's not. It's not going to give you success. And actually, I think so. One of the things I was going to say was actually I think one of the best lights in the hobby, pound for pound, is Evergrows.
I don't know. I've never.
So I had 2 of them over my 4-foot tank, and they were just amazing. And you would save a fortune getting them over Radions. But lighting is not as important as people think. It is important. You've got to get it right. But people think I must get lighting. If I'm going to get one thing right, it's got to be lighting, and that's where I'm going to spend my money because it's just so essential. And I must get the spectrum exact. I must get the photo period perfect, and I don't think that's right.
I think salt is more important than lighting, in my opinion. I don't know if that's controversial or not. I think if you get a good salt with the correct parameters, you're off to a good start.
Fair enough. Another one, I'm going to rattle through a few more. This is a really good one from Hugo. Phosphates don't cause algae problems. Lack of herbivores causes algae problems.
I mean, technically.
I mean, phosphates do cause algae problems. But the point is, the problem is that it's not getting eaten. And I say all the time, in my tank, if I didn't have my foxface, it would be like the bloody Wimbledon lawn. There'd just be green everywhere.
And why is it not obese?
I know, I know. Well, maybe the coal tang is doing all the work.
Yeah,
it seems like, but anyway, yeah. So, but lack of herb. I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I've just seen Queen of Reef is in the comments.
Celebrity watcher.
I saw Queen of Reef at Macna once, a long time ago. That was when she got a very unique tattoo.
Give us the scoop. Oh, didn't she get a skimmer?
Yes. Do you still have the skimmer, or has it been changed? Has it been covered by something else? I'm just intrigued. Yeah, I was there that night.
There we go. What? Give us some gossip from that night.
I wasn't there in terms of with her. Oh, she does still have it.
No.
I was there the next morning, and it was like, "Yep, I've got a tattoo," and it was like, "Oh, you got a tattoo?"
It's a skimmer.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're at 2 hours.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things that lights are super important depending on the corals you want to keep. So getting lighting right is important, yeah. But I think people mess around too much. The biggest thing I see is people saying, "Oh, you should have your lighting blue because it's better for corals." It's like my light is white most of the day, and my corals do all right. And that's but anyway, we've done that.
Prestige Reef should get a tattoo. I do not look like someone who should have a tattoo.
Maybe you should get a tattoo of the Reef Talk logo.
If I'm gonna get a tattoo, I'll get one of these on me.
Yeah, yeah. What was I going to say? Someone else posted something up here that I wanted. Controversial opinion, raise parameters. I think that's stupid, personally.
I ran my tank like that for years.
Then you're stupid.
I ran my alkalinity at 12 for literally years. Was it the best thing to do? Do I do it now? I do not. Is it possible? Yes. Yeah, I did it for excessive growth. I don't actually want excessive growth on to some extent on the coral tray because it's just too much with some of the Monteporas. It's insane. But it is possible, and it does increase your growth rate, but you have to do it really carefully. You need to have excessive light. You need to have excessive nitrate and phosphate and calcium and magnesium. You can't have just one higher than the rest.
That is for the 1% for me. The 1% who have nailed absolutely everything. You've got the flow, you've got the lighting, you've got the nutrients, you've got everything right, and you just want to push the boundaries and get pH right. You want to push everything else, and then you go for that. But the 99%, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing this is the thing that I think that people really should realize for both mine and Alex's channel. You don't see all of our failures. Sometimes we will show you our failures, but just because I kept a tank at 12, the alkalinity was 12, doesn't mean everything did brilliantly. I don't remember what happened, if you see what I mean. I might have had some ACANs which were looking a bit sad, or maybe a trachea died. But I do know that the SPS did well. So you have to be very careful about the opinion that you take from people, because just because one person can do it does not mean it's firstly the right thing, and secondly, it's good for everything.
Do you know what? So on that point, that with and actually shout out to the super chat. Thank you very much, Valhalla. Very kind of you. Canadian dollars, I think that is. So good to have some Canadians in the house. But on the point of failures and that sort of stuff and showing them on YouTube, one thing I find is that I'm happy to share when things go wrong. It's fine. It's cool. And I like to tell people it's not all red wine and roses. But there are times when if I've got a problem in my tank, if I've got a coral that's dying, for example, I don't want to take a photo of it and I don't want to film it. It's not because I want to hide it. It's because I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, that looks crap. But and then 6 months down the line, I'll be like, I'm doing a video about dinoflagellates. Oh, damn, I didn't take any footage when I had it. It's not because I'm trying to hide it. It's because it inspires you to take videos and photos of awesome stuff. And if stuff looks crap, I'm just like, I don't want to do it. But I kick myself 6 months later because I'm like, that would be really useful to have it to talk about it. But a lot of people on social media will show the good stuff, partly because they don't want to look like they're failing, but also partly because you don't want to be sharing something that looks rubbish. It doesn't inspire you. It's like it gets you down almost.
The other thing is, it's like we get enough criticism for showing the good stuff, if you see what I mean. So to go, oh, by the way, I killed all this stuff. Now, if you're doing a very specific video about something that went wrong, it's different. But if every week, because things do go wrong, and you mean it's all not like it's one of the things, and I don't know if you agree with me. It does become quite tough. You have to have a thick skin to do this. To have 10,000 people watch a video, and people are more likely to put something negative than positive, generally. Sometimes they put nice stuff.
I don't find that. I very rarely get some. I get
people bloody love you then.
Well, that's because I'm a better YouTuber. So
that's actually true.
So I do get criticism from time to time, but I ignore it a lot of the time. And I'm just going to go in and see if I can see if I've got anything held for review. No, nothing held for review. But So nothing really nasty. I get
You're
criticism.
like, wait a minute, what's this comment from Prestige Reef?
I know, yeah. I get criticism, of course I do, and rightly so sometimes. A lot of the time it's wide of the mark.
Yeah.
But almost all I think the reason you think about that is because if 99 people say, "Oh, mate, your tank looks wicked. Ryan, you're doing a really good job there. Thank you for the video." You're like, yeah. I've seen that before. I know, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Because you've seen it all the time. And if
Yeah,
one
I
person
see what you
says
mean.
that your Xenia looks crap, you're like, it sticks with you. So
I agree with what you're saying. It's not loads of mean people. It's basically the worst ones sort of stick with you a bit more at first.
yeah, for sure.
Something that I found really interesting was I saw a video where someone had I'm not going to say who it was, but they had quite a bad experience, and the comment section on that was horrific with regards to people saying terrible things. That they shouldn't be doing it, and they don't know and things like that. And they've obviously had a successful reef tank, but something went wrong.
Yeah.
And I just thought people don't. And someone in the comments said literally a minute ago that reef tanks are built on essentially bones of the corals that didn't survive, and to some extent that is true.
It is.
If you take a picture of your tank, if you look at a picture of your tank from 3 years ago, how many of the corals in that picture are still there?
Yeah.
If you see, and some of them will be, and some of them will be massive, but some of them won't be.
Do you know what? So Queen of Reef says she's noticed people being more open and honest about failures, the less criticism. So she did a video last week, maybe, talking about things that are going wrong, and like showed the tank with algae on it and all this sort of stuff. Showed like making an aquascape and it breaking, putting it back together and it breaking again, showing the things that go wrong. And actually, that's what people want to see. That's what people. It's not what necessarily gets big views, but it's what people want. If you go on YouTube, you don't want to see some manicured, perfect how-to guide where it's absolutely pristine. This is how it will run if you've done it 100 times. Yeah. You want to see the things that can go wrong and be like, that's what happens. That's real life, what is actually going on.
Yeah, I do.
And it's hard to share that because you do get panned. If you do that you get panned. And so if I posted a video of a tank that was just covered in algae and it was 3 months old, not that I'd have that because, I'm a brilliant reefer. But if I did that, people would be like, you don't know what you're doing. Your tank's rubbish and all this sort of stuff. So,
but they haven't seen your other tank. Do you see what I mean? They haven't seen what you can do. This is what I would actually quite like to do. When I do get a new tank for the house, I am going to have a very honest, everything is shown bare with regards to this reef tank. Because if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. And I will fix it when it goes wrong. Because that happens too.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm interrupting you saying thank you to everyone, aren't I?
No, carry on. I'm still listening. I'm multitasking.
You're rich tonight. Look at that.
I know. Yeah. You're going to want commission now, aren't you?
No. I do this for the love.
So do I.
But you're like, please, Ryan, please come and be on my stream.
No, yeah. But yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say
show warts and all.
Yeah. If that's what I would like to do, because I have done tank things before where I tried to show some of the better things when I was a bit more of a careful YouTuber, and then gradually you care less about what people think. And then obviously I did a tank which was very well known that I worked with Red Sea for, and then with that I had to show that it was like the good stuff basically, because it was basically a big advertising campaign for them. But I had to make it interesting at the same time. Whereas I want to be able to do one myself. Imagine someone coming to you saying, you can make a video on these tanks, but you have to do it in a specific way. Whereas I want to be able to go, look, this is all the rubbish stuff I did. And this is normal. And this is how I'm going to fix it.
So I won't ever do that. Or I don't think I will. Not as open as you will. And it's for the same reason that shops sell corals as Cookie Monster Sarmentosa rather than Aquapora Sarmentosa. Because people want to buy a coral with a fancy name, and people want to click on videos to see awesome stuff. You don't go on YouTube to see crappy people failing, or people that you perceive people that you perceive to be that. You want to see people doing well, or some people will do, and actually that's much more useful. But the masses, if you're trying to get views and grow a channel, showing a tank with diatoms everywhere and algae for 6 months.
Yeah,
it'll be useful. It'll be wicked, but you're not going to get big views.
Yeah.
But it would be useful. I'm not saying don't do it. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And
No,
Rolly's Reef Ranch says that's why he or she is a reality YouTuber, which I like.
Yeah. We never got to my most controversial one, and I'm not going to say it now because you want to go home. You want to go to bed, I'm assuming.
I do. Do you know what? So I'm not working in the office tomorrow. I'm going to work from home.
I got away with it.
But do you know, let's say we've gone 2 hours 10 minutes. I planned on this being an hour.
An hour?
Yeah.
Did you?
There
was no chance.
That's what I was thinking. I know, but I really enjoyed this. I just lost track of time, to be honest. So we will do. Hang on a second. We will do a before. Do you know what? That's a really good point. Before and after is. I'd be up for that.
Yeah,
so then you're not hiding and you're not saying, "Oh, everything's great. Don't worry, it's all lager and roses." But you're not just showing the bad. I like that. That's a good idea. Anyway. So what we're going to do then? So this is going to be a weekly thing, right?
Oh, is it?
Possibly.
Is this where you get me to sign up?
This is I think so. Let's do that. In fact, that's public peer pressure, bullying you into it. No. So actually, next week I'm going to have, with a bit of luck, I've not. I think I've confirmed. I'll confirm it, but I've got Remy, proper. Proper YouTuber coming.
A serious person, someone who knows what they're doing.
Exactly. So, but I really do like the idea. The last couple that we've done, I've really enjoyed it. I think it's been really good. It's worked well. We've had a peak viewership of 220, 230, which is a lot more when it's just me on my own talking rubbish. So I would like to get you back on, and you're welcome on any time. But I want to be respectful to your video commitments, your farm commitments, your chilling out commitments, and so on.
Basically, if I'm not doing anything, and you don't have someone coming on, I will join you. There you go. You heard that, everybody. You have a video commitment.
That's a legally binding contract.
I don't know if other people want to see me again, but it was overwhelming the amount of positive response we got from the first one. It's definitely from people who messaged me, and I know some people messaged you as well. It was I was surprised at how positive the response was.
But this is so. I've had a few people on. So like Sean from the Ocean Project came on a while ago. He was nervous about it, understandably, never done it before, and he had people messaging him afterwards, saying from all over the place, saying, "Oh, I watched it. It was great. It was so interesting." I had Brian from TMC on. He had people messaging him from all over the world, saying, "I loved that. You were so interesting," and watching, and tuning in. People who don't normally watch my videos, I suspect. Yeah. And I love these live streams because you get to see what people are properly like. So this is like, if you watch one of yours or my video, it's a bit kind of manicured and it's not the 100%. You can't talk for hours about everything. Whereas seeing these, you can see into, I can see into your soul, basically. You know what I mean? So you get to know people.
Tell Sean he didn't need to be nervous. I find that if I have a glass of wine, it makes talking to you for 2 hours much easier. Any longer, I might need another glass.
On that note, we'll wrap it up. But thank you very much for coming on, Ryan. It's been an absolute pleasure having you back.
It was a pleasure.
And everybody, I will see you again next week with Remy, and shortly after with a legally binding contract with Ryan.
Yeah. See you later.
Cheers, guys.